I am Ray, and today we are going to learn about reality shifting, also called timeline shifting, and we are going to learn how to not die, and on a more positive note, how to create any life that you desire. Now, have you ever wondered when you hear about somebody dying in a car accident, what were the actions that led them to this place? Now, we are not going to say that it is their fault, but it is undeniable that every step they took, you could say from the moment they were born, led them to this place in which they died in a car accident. What were the steps in the previous days, the previous weeks, all led them to this moment? Why? And can we avoid it? As far as I can tell, yes, we can. As I often say, the price of ignorance is slavery and death. Those who do not know their power have no power. And so many people are a slave to fate. Now here is the tragedy of many people's lives. You were born with infinite potential. As a child, life is great because you have all the potential in the world. The world is your oyster, whatever that means. But you see, something sad happens along the way, and that is we get conditioned by our environment, by people, and just by life in general. And what this does is that this begins to put us in a box. And that box is called ego. We pick up all of this kind of conditioning, all of these stories and the beliefs and the identities. And so over time, our potential becomes more and more limited. The more conditioned we become, the less potential we have. And a lot of the times we get stuck in our own ways. The more you are attached to your identity as ego, the more difficult it is to change. That is why, for instance, children can change very quickly. They evolve and they adapt rapidly. They are not trapped in the prison of ego. They do not have the conditioning that many of us have. Now, what most people are ignorant of is that within all of us, there is Source, which is called God. You know, Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. And Source is the infinite and the eternal. And in truth, this is the true nature of what you are, spirit or consciousness. Just to throw this out there, what this implies is that you have the infinite power of creation at the touch of your fingertips. You see, for the longest time, I could not see a good argument for free will. Even though I knew it must be true, I could not experience it. I could not understand it from my own perspective. I did not feel like it was possible. But now I see that we have the potential for ultimate free will. Because when you recognize that this is your true nature, that you as a mind, which is, I use ego and mind interchangeably. They're not exactly the same. But the mind is a tool that we use to direct this power. This is also called energy. Energy is the force of creation. It is the force of life. So us as divine creators, we are designed to take this infinite and eternal potential, the power of creation, and we direct that power, and that is how we create reality. Now, we have to kind of change our way of thinking here for a moment, because most of us do not really understand what it means to be infinite, what it means to be eternal, because we live our whole lives from a limited and temporary state. If I believe myself to be the body, I believe myself to be a very limited being. What the infinite and the eternal mean is that there are an infinite array of different potential yous, an infinite array of different realities all happening at the same time. Could you imagine? And the reality that is manifesting right now is a consequence of our mind. One common way of looking at this is called reality transurfing. The book itself, for me, it was quite advanced, so not necessarily for beginners, but here is a simple way of looking at it. At the bottom, you have hell, and at the top, you have heaven. These are potential realities. This is your highest potential. This is your lowest potential. And here is the sea of infinite potential. The mind is like a ship or like a boat. Or you might say the mind is like the captain of the ship or the boat. And so here we are, born into life, and we kind of just shift all over the place. If you learn how to live life right and you do the right things, you go like this. This is an overgeneralization. If you do the wrong things, if you don't figure it out, these are the people you see cracked out on the streets. These are the people you look up to and say, I want to be like them. This is most average people. Lukewarm life. Now, all of these realities are happening simultaneously in the present moment. However, think of our mind like a tuning knob to a radio. These are the infinite array of different timelines. A timeline is like a radio station, and the songs on that radio station are like our experiences. If you are tuned to the hell radio, all the songs that will play on this radio station are going to be the songs you hate the most. And all the advertisements they play are going to be for things you do not care about at all. However, if you are tuned into Heaven Radio, all the songs are your favorite songs, and every advertisement is an advertisement for things that you would love to buy. And so our mind is a tool that causes us or allows us to tap in to different timelines, tuning into different radio stations. And you can tune into any station that you like. If you do not realize that you have this power, you will unconsciously tune into radio stations probably that you do not like. As you can see with many people, they live lives that they don't enjoy. And so what happens to people in certain situations like getting into a car accident and dying, what happens is through our conditioning, we become more and more stuck to one specific timeline. In order to jump timelines, we have to change. We have to change our minds. But because of our conditioning, we have cut off much of our potential. And so we get more and more stuck to a single timeline in which there is what you might call a fate. Let's say on this timeline, we are destined to die at a particular age, maybe in a car accident, maybe through cancer. Whatever it is, each timeline has its own fate, a day that you will die. Your heavenly fate will be a good death. Your hellish fate will be a terrible death, with an infinite array of different deaths in between. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. So because of our conditioning, we get stuck on a certain timeline and, well, we just don't know how to change. There's an interesting idea that says when you have a near-death experience where you almost die, you actually did die in a certain reality, but before you died, you shifted timelines, and so you avoided that death. Too bad for other you. Now, the way this works is very simple. Let's define heaven and hell. For a moment, we know heaven is the best experience for the longest period of time, and hell is obviously the worst experience for the longest amount of time. Now you can begin imagining. At the lowest end of the spectrum, the version of you that is currently in hell, how might they think? How do they feel? What do they do? What are their actions, their habits? And same goes for the heavenly version. I mean, you could take the time to list this out, but I think we get a general idea. The version of you that is in hell only thinks negative thoughts, only feels negative, only suffers, and only engages in the wrong actions. The heavenly version of you only thinks the best thoughts, feels good all the time, and always engages in the right action. Now, we are human, so hell and heaven are like potentials, that they are ideals that we cannot actually reach, but we can strive for. So it is not really possible to only have positive thoughts, to only feel good all the time, and to only do the right things. Neither heaven nor hell exists in the physical realm. They exist in the eternal realm as potential. Therefore, they are never truly made manifest in their pure form. Now, the way that we create our realities, and just as a note, because some will say, well, we do not actually create our realities. And this is true. Creation is already finished because there is infinite and eternal potential within you. So, technically speaking, we do not create anything. We just tap into a different version of ourselves, a different reality that is already there. However, for practicality's sake, we are creators. Now, with that infinite potential is funneled down into the present moment and is actualized. The mind, right here, this is the mind, is the portal between the eternal and the temporary, the infinite and the limited. This is the gateway. And here, so we have the present moment, and vertically we have time. Up here is the future. The future is potential. Down here is the past, what has already been actualized. But everything comes together in this present moment. The further you stray into the future, the more potential realities there are. The closer you get to the present moment, the more the potential is cut off, and a single reality is actualized. Now you could almost look at it like this is a person whose vision is going outward. And so you're gathering this potential and bringing it forth to the present moment. But the way that you direct your attention determines which potential you gather. The more often your mind is pointed in a negative direction, the more you gather negative potential. And so too, the more your mind is pointed in a positive direction, you gather more heavenly potential. What is often said is that energy is the force of creation, and our mind is a tool that directs the flow of energy. So the entire quality of the life that we create for ourselves is determined precisely by the quality of the things we focus our attention on. Yes, it is this simple. I mean, have you ever wondered why somebody becomes a billionaire versus a homeless person? A saint versus a serial killer? Or even simply a healthy person versus somebody who's sick all the time? We all have access to the same energy, the same power, although in different degrees. The quality of the life that we create for ourselves is determined by the quality of the things we focus on. A billionaire focuses on all the ways to make billions of dollars. A homeless person focuses on all the things that makes them lose all their money. A saint focuses one-pointedly toward God. A serial killer points their minds in all the directions that separate them from God. Evil is just the absence of God in man's heart. A healthy person focuses on all the things that promote health, while obviously a sick person focuses on all the opposite. Whoever thought that life would be that simple? However, on the surface level of things, it seems like magic. It seems like fate. No, not fate. Well, there is some fate, but through this teaching, you will never be a slave to fate again. If you truly claim your authority as a divine creator, you can create any life that you desire regardless of your external circumstances. Let's take a sick person, for example. Now, this is not medical advice. This is just how I would approach this situation if I ever got sick. Let's say I get cancer. Why does this happen? Actually, before I get into this, we must dive into the nature of sin and virtue. We'll leave that there for a moment. This is so important. There are 3 ways we can direct our mind, our attention. We can direct our mind in a positive way, we can direct our mind in a neutral way, or we can direct our mind in a negative way. Negative equals sin, positive equals virtue, neutral equals neutral. Now, what determines whether or not something is a sin or whether something is a virtue is determined by how we point our mind, but more importantly, because energy is life. Where we point our mind determines where energy flows. If we point our mind in a negative direction, it means that whatever we did, we lost energy. If we point our mind in a positive direction, whatever we did, we gained energy. Another way of looking at this, you could say God is the ultimate energy. Whatever sin we engage in separates us from God, and whatever virtue we engage in brings us closer to God. In other words, hell is synonymous with separation, and heaven is synonymous with union. Separation from and union with God or energy. So heaven or hell is determined by our ability to direct our mind in the right direction. Sin comes from an archery term that means to miss the mark. It means, the most accurate definition of sin means to point your mind in a negative direction that causes you to lose energy. Heaven is eternal life, and hell is eternal death. Therefore, where life is not, death is. Like when you turn the lights off to a room, darkness is what remains. So when you point your mind in a negative direction that causes you to lose energy, to lose life, death takes its place. And the more you point your mind in a negative direction, the more death manifests in your life. Whether an illness, whether an accident, whether you get murdered, it does not matter. Death is death and life is life. We all have a balance of life and death within us. Life with a capital F, life with a capital L, is the dynamic play between order and chaos, life force and the death force. You could also say light and darkness. Now pay close attention here because there is some subtlety that needs to be pointed out. Life with a capital L. Think about the universe for a moment. The universe, like everything else, is a system. So you are a system, the universe is a system, our society is a system, everything is a system, and it consists of these 2 energies. In order for a system to be able to sustain itself, it must have the proper balance of order and chaos. For instance, in your body, your cells must proliferate, they must grow, you must create new cells, and cells must also die. If that balance is messed up, trouble. In the same way, your energy must be balanced. There's masculine and there's feminine. If your energy is too masculine, you'll experience problems. If your energy is too feminine, you'll experience problems. Both of these two forces come together to create balance, to create harmony, and that is life. So we need death. The death force is not bad. Darkness is not bad. Chaos is not bad. These two forces are extremely necessary. If you like the light more than you like the darkness, you can become imbalanced toward one side, which brings us to our next point. Death, with a capital D, is simply the imbalance of those two forces. Think about, again, in a system, if there is too much order in a system, growth will stagnate. Because in order to grow, you must also break down. You need chaos, you need to break down, you need death for new life to arise. If there is only life without death, cancer, it is the death of the cells that prevent the cells from getting out of control. Too much order. Imbalance. Why does imbalance occur, do you think? Seems we have come full circle. It's a little thing called ego. Human beings are the only species that can be imbalanced. Because we are the only species with a mind. It is because of our mind that we are cutting down the rainforests, using and abusing the planet, and essentially bleeding ourselves to death. If we wish to survive, we must return ourselves to a state of balance. Otherwise, we will be led to destruction, to hell on earth. Now, this brings up an interesting question. Something I just thought of. Let's see where this takes us. Does this mean that we should balance virtue and sin? What a great conundrum. We are told to avoid sin and to be virtuous. And this, I feel, is the most beautiful thing about the spiritual path. Because the spiritual path is about balance. What this means is that we are grounded in this human body, but we are also spiritual beings. Most spiritual and religious people think that these two forces are fighting against each other, that we have to reject the earthliness, the humanness, to the virtuous and the spiritual. In many religions, there is an essence of not feeding our fleshly desires and doing our best to lead a moral and virtuous life. And I say, do not be fooled. If you are too attached to being virtuous, if you wear the golden chains of morality while rejecting your base instincts, your more fleshly desires, you will create imbalance. That is the one true sin. Being too spiritual without being grounded in your body is like being decapitated. Your head is up in the clouds. You may have great wisdom, you may have great knowledge, but you will not be grounded in the physical world. You will not be practical, and most importantly, you will not be balanced. This will be probably the most controversial idea for religious and spiritual people. That is, God, in its essence, is a representation of wholeness, of totality. By definition, nothing can be separated from God. And although many people may agree with this, You may not understand the implications. As it is said, God makes the rain fall upon the righteous and the unrighteous. The sun shines upon the righteous and the unrighteous. God supports all, the demons and the humans. God gives free will to all and will not infringe upon the free will neither of the demons nor of the humans. God supports the demons. God supports the humans. God is the darkness. God is the light. God is life. God is death. God gives and God takes. For whatever reason, we paint God to be only light, only good. And we say the demons, the devil, the darkness, these are the bad guys. I'm sorry. God is both. There is an aspect of God that is pure good, pure love. There's an aspect of God that is neutral, that is the law. There is an aspect of God that is negative, destruction. If you reject your darkness, if you reject the evil in you, if you reject and hate your demons, you will fall to imbalance, the only true sin. It does not mean that you embrace your demons and become evil. It means that you accept everything. Because everything is good. Everything is God. And the true virtue in this life is to try to align yourself with God. Perfection is wholeness. Circle. But what do? We say no. We need to stop the evil. We need to destroy the evil. We need to get rid of the darkness. That is why most people would make terrible gods. The first thing they would do as a god would be destroy everything, because they would try to get rid of the darkness, of the evil. There is no such thing as light without darkness. There's no such thing as good without evil. If you destroy evil, you destroy good. We might imply then, as Carl Jung said, a tree cannot grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. In between heaven and hell is a lukewarm life. This is why I coined the term extreme Buddha. You do not want to be only good. You do not want to be only evil. In this life, you want to leave no stone unturned. Experience the lowest hell, and you will experience the highest heaven. If, of course, you can escape. But as Christ said in Revelations, those who are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Now, hell usually comes for us regardless. So don't put yourself in hell just because you want to go to heaven. Typically, we have to strive and work hard in order to live a heavenly life. But you see, life goes like this. Life is a sine wave. The peak is determined by the depth of your trough. Your highs are determined by the depths of your lows. But if you live a lukewarm life, you neither have high highs or low lows. This is what it means to truly live. And this is what is required to live your highest potential. You see, balance is often associated with not going too high or too low. But I preach the message of extreme balance. You want to go low so you can go high. Because life is given meaning through contrast. You cannot know the light without knowing the darkness. Now let's assume that you've already experienced some hell in your life, which most of us have. Or if you are in hell now, how do we escape? As implied previously, the way we direct our mind is through the things we focus our attention on. We only have control over two things in this life: our conscious thoughts and our actions. Therefore, the way to reach your highest potential is to change your thoughts and to change your actions. Let's use the radio example again. Thoughts are the tuning mechanism that tunes to a particular frequency. The heavenly frequency, the hellish frequency, or anywhere in between. So you know which frequency you want. And then your emotions are the force that pulls you into that frequency. You might think the physical turning of the knob. You might also use a word like gravity. It pulls you in the direction that you want, that you've chosen. Now we cannot just affect our emotions directly. We do not have control over our emotions, we have control indirectly. Which means that in order to change our emotions, we must either change our thoughts or our actions, or both. Now, where most people fall short, or at least some common mistakes that people make, let me pretend for a moment that I am an evil tyrant in control of the system, or the matrix. I am an evil dictator, and I want you to be my slave. Therefore, the first thing I shall destroy is your focus, and I shall use temporary pleasure. I will destroy your dopamine system. First, by destroying your health with junk food and toxic chemicals. Because without a healthy body, you will have a weak brain. And with a weak brain, you will have a weak mind. And so you will be unable to focus. Also, with things like social media, I will destroy your attention span. If you do not have focus, you cannot direct the force of creation long enough on anything to bear fruit. For instance, if you have a row of seeds in a garden bed that each require 10 cups of water, to lack focus means you begin watering one seed, and after 3 cups, you move on to the next one. And after 5 cups, you move on to the next one. You don't give any seed enough water to grow, and so they all die. Without focus, your power as a divine creator is neutered. You become castrated. What this means is that when you try to tune the radio to the frequency of your desire, you will be wavering too much. In other words, you will be sending out conflicting frequencies all the time. You'll say, I want to go to heaven. Oh no, I want to go to hell. Oh no, I want to go to heaven. Oh no. And so you'll stay stuck, never really going anywhere. Then the next thing I would do, with whatever little attention span you had left, I would get you to focus on negativity. I would hijack your biology, because we are biologically programmed to focus on negativity as an evolutionary function. So through the news and the social media, I would train you of your life force. And because energy equals life, equals power, equals creation, when you are constantly feeding your energy to negativity by focusing on things that are negative, you lose your life, you lose your power, and you lose your ability as a divine creator. In other words, slavery and death. And I want you to understand this very carefully. The overwhelming majority of people that you will ever meet in your life are a slave in this way. How do I know this? It's because everybody in my life is a slave. I have not yet met one person in real life that is truly free. I presume that 90% of the world's population is a slave to whatever you want to call it, whether the matrix, whether the system. They do not know their power. They do not know their power as a divine creator. They have no power. And so how does this manifest in our life? This is called being a battery in the matrix. We slave our life. We slave our life away for this. We give our time. We give our energy. Working jobs we don't like. Trading the only thing of true value in this life, that is life itself. We trade our life away for this, that which has depreciated in value since its conception. Worthless. The only thing that is worth anything, time, is really just energy over a duration. While they laugh at you and print trillions for nothing out of thin air, while so many people struggle to make ends meet. Slavery. You think slavery ended? No, they just made everybody else slaves. Once you recognize your true power and claim authority over this power, when you become a divine creator, when you become free, the system really doesn't mean anything. For all intents and purposes, it's an illusion. The slavery is in ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of your true power. Do not worry about the matrix. Do not worry about the system. Do not worry about whatever your external environment is. It is irrelevant. You are not a slave to anything. You are a slave to ignorance. The only prison in existence is your own mind, and you are the jailer. And this prison is made up of thoughts. All that the system does is take advantage of your ignorance. It only enslaves those who do not claim their power. Those who don't know their power have no power. Those who do not know their rights have no rights. Everything that you focus on in this life comes at a price. Because the mind is a pointed tool. It can only focus on one thing at a time. Which means for every moment you focus on evil, you take your attention away from that which is good. Every moment you focus on what is wrong, you take your attention away from what is right. Every moment you focus on the world, you take your attention away from God. Those who look at the world do not see God, and those who look at God do not see the world. The matrix is the mind. To those who know their true power, to those who know God, they are not a slave to anything. The matrix, the ego, is nothing but illusion, but ignorance. But if you choose to focus on the system, the matrix, all the things that are going wrong in your life, all of your problems, then guess what? You willingly enslave yourself to evil and to ignorance. All evil requires your consent. It requires your permission to enter into your life, like a vampire that has to ask in order for it to enter your home. It's all about consent, freely giving away your power. If you do not give it away, nothing can take it. And so the system, which is the illusion, Maya, is ruled by whoever you want to call it. You want to call it Satan, you want to call it the Lord of Darkness, the reptilians, doesn't matter. All that they do is that they make you an offer, but they cannot sell you anything if you are not interested in buying. So take control of your attention. Do not continue to live in unconsciousness, or like Carl Jung said, if you do not make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Because we are creating our reality every moment by what we choose to focus our attention on. You focus your attention on that which is positive, and this brings you more in harmony with life. When the negativity comes, which it will, and you want it to, because this is part of balance. When the negativity comes to tempt you, become an alchemist and transmute that negativity into positivity, into life. Those who cannot handle the darkness fall to hell, no matter how virtuous they try to be. Wholeness, to be like God, which is the true essence of spirituality. As it is sometimes said, have coffee with the devil. Face your darkness. Accept it. Send it love. Do not run away, because if you do, the devil will simply run your life, pull your strings without your conscious awareness. You want to look the devil in the eyes. You don't want the devil to be behind you. You will naturally engage in things that are negative because you are human. Learn to love the ugliness in life. Learn to love the messiness. Learn to love being human, because being human is one of the most spiritual things you can do. You would not want everything to be positive all the time, because then life would have no meaning. The negative comes automatically. It's how you react, it's how you respond to the negative that determines which reality you shift to. In other words, if, for instance, you make a mistake, or you think you've made a mistake, if you allow yourself to ruminate on guilt, on shame, you will be dragged further down to hell. If you realize there are no mistakes, that everything is in God's plan, or that there are only opportunities, you reframe the experience to serve you instead of destroy you. In other words, you transmute lead into gold, negativity into positivity. And that is how you rise, that is how you actualize higher potential. This all begins with awareness. You could say the first step, be conscious of your thoughts and the words that you speak. This is why I say, if you just paid attention for one day on your thoughts, on the words that you speak, you would know exactly why your life is the way it is. Because through your thoughts and through your words, you are shifting into different realities all the time. So if you want to shift into a higher reality, what happens? You become aware and you begin paying attention to all the subtle negative ways you entertain negative thoughts and you speak negatively. Awareness is light. Ignorance is darkness. The cure for darkness is light. The cure for ignorance is awareness. So, every day you have a set of positive and negative things that you focus your attention on. Imagine there was 2 buckets or 2 voting ballots. Every day we're voting for our best life or we're voting for our worst life based on the thoughts, on the words, on our reactions to our experiences. This pulls us up toward heaven, this brings us down toward hell. Now, if you learn to transmute negativity, it doesn't matter what happens, because you can take any negative situation and turn it into something positive. But until you become aware of what you are ignorant of, you cannot solve the problem, you cannot change. Because you probably don't realize all the ways you are feeding negativity. Because if you did, you would stop it. You would not consciously want to pull yourself down toward hell. And so, one of the only reasons that we do is because we are ignorant, we are living in unconsciousness. So the first step, stop feeding negativity. I could probably sum up the whole video in these 2 phrases. Stop feeding negativity. Stop focusing your direction in a negative direction. Stop focusing your attention in a negative direction. And start feeding positivity. Who would have thought? You become aware of all the ways you are feeding negativity. And through your awareness, you begin to stop. Then you consciously begin thinking better thoughts. Remember, think about the ideal version of you living your ideal life. How do they think and how do they feel? They're expressing gratitude all the time. They're expressing love all the time. They're in peace, meaning they are not at war with themselves. They are not fighting their negative thoughts. They are not judging themselves. They are not ruminating on guilt and shame and fear and worries and concerns. They're not thinking about the past, unless of course they're learning from their mistakes. And they're really not worrying about the future. But if they think about the future, they're thinking about all the great things that are going to happen. Live by this motto. Everything is working out perfectly in your favor. Every negative thing that happens is simply your next step in your spiritual evolution. Because remember, balance and wholeness means the darkness and the light are equally important. Without the villain, there is no need for a hero. And without the hero, there is no story to be told. Which means that all the negative things that happen to you are not, in fact, bad. We label them bad because we do not like them. But they are necessary for our evolution. Think about it. Without suffering, we wouldn't grow. So it's not about what you think is true, what you think something is bad, what you think something is negative. What matters is what you choose to focus on. Any negative thing can either serve to destroy you or to fuel your spiritual growth. Become the source of what you seek. If you want more love in your life, if you want to become the version of you who is with your dream partner or who just loves life, be the source of love, because you are. Only when we are an ego, which creates lack and separation, do we feel we have to get love from outside of us. Not true. You are the source of love, you are the source of peace, you are the source of joy, and you are the source of abundance. But if you live from ego, from separation, from ignorance, from illusion, you will feel like you have to go out into the world and struggle to get abundance, to get love, to have peace, to have joy. And that is what it is called to be a slave to the matrix, to be a slave to illusion. And you get caught in what is called samsara, a never-ending hamster wheel of suffering, of desires, of aversions, and never being satisfied. Not good. And so, become aware of your true power. As they say, knowledge is power. Seek enlightenment. Seek your true nature. All suffering comes from ignorance, from unconsciousness. And so what we want to do, we first use our mind, you could say, to know which frequency we want to tune to. Which radio station do we want to listen to? Of course, we want the highest of the high. We want to live our highest potential. But that is different for everyone, so you have to look into your soul and find which vision for your life most resonates with you. What would be your dream life? I can't tell you what that is. If you could live any life that you desire and without limitations, what would that be? And who would you be? Who do you want to become? What is the ideal version of you? You must get clear on the frequency, the station, or otherwise you can't tune to it. If your mind is driving you along on the ocean of infinite potential, you want to know which way is up. What that means, the more clear you can become, the more specific you can tune to the right frequency. Because remember, it's infinite potential, which means that you can tune infinitely more specific. Now, once you have a general direction for your life, it's not exactly to be necessary to be so clear right away, but you want a general vision. You want a destination. And then lastly, you want to follow your emotional guidance system. So your body is always telling you through your feelings whether or not you are growing closer to heaven or growing closer to hell. Pay attention to how you feel on a daily basis and see the things that make you feel good and see the things that make you feel bad. Follow your bliss. Follow your inspiration. Don't just follow temporary pleasure, because we all know temporary pleasure does not actually feel good. It feels nice for half a second, and then it feels terrible for a long time. I'm assuming you have wisdom. When you tap, you know you will tap into your life's purpose, to your vision, to your soul. When you discover the things that truly inspire you, the things that would make you excited to get out of bed in the morning, you follow this, you follow your feelings, you know where you are going, and you will be guided to your highest potential, and you will shift realities to any reality that you desire, regardless of your external circumstances. I am Ray. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.